Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we have another one in the shop that I haven't done for a video. This one is the Penn 980 Mag Power. And this is a reel that's been around a while. It's no longer in production. It's kind of a hybrid. It sort of uses the chassis from the Jigmaster. And it has a magnet here that's going to slow and help control the spool during casting. Nice product, nice metal work, clean and bright. Hugo sent this one in, and we're going to go tune it up for him. And what I went ahead and did was I went ahead and ordered drags for this reel, just as a basic part of the service. This reel's been around a while. It's been used, and I'm going to assume that the drags should be replaced. And as long as you're going through a basic service, the cost of the drag washers just isn't that significant on the overall scheme of things. So let's do what we always do. Let's start by taking this reel off, take it apart, see what's going on in there, show you the structure of the reel, and how to service this. So you notice, as always, I put a little protective glove on my non-working hand, or my less working hand, not my dominant one. And then we're just going to start taking pieces off. This is a collar. This one doesn't come out by pulling out. It's actually underneath this one. There's 4 side plate screws. We'll go ahead and remove those. And the Mag Power is a kind of an upscale Jigmaster for the most part. It's the internals actually are shared, I believe, with the 320 level wind reel. It has a little bit bigger gear sleeve, and the washers are the 113H washers, which is the Senator washers. Those are bigger than the Jigmasters. You have a little bit more max drag going on there. Let's grab these. These are a little bit different on the post. They're not fully threaded. They do have a little shoulder to them. That should come out now. I think I took them. Nope. One more. I got to loosen up a little bit more. Let's see if we can, there we go, we can pull that off. So if you look on the inside very much looks like the 120, and we did one of those a little bit earlier, the graphite. On the back side here, what we have, just to show you how this works, and hopefully we'll see a little bit more. We have a magnet here, which is going to run the back of the spool, and what that's going to do is just put some force there to slow it on casting. Have a ball bearing underneath, so we'll oil the ball bearing. This inside of this reel is very clean. I'm going to pull that, there's an adjuster here on the magnet. I'm just going to back that off a little bit. And you can see how the collar kind of moves back, so it moves to and fro on that. And that's all you have to do on this side. The clicker's in good shape. The posts, as I mentioned, are Jigmaster posts. The reel seat is not. The reel seat is different. Okay, so let's just get those other screws out of here because they have a tendency to fall out when you don't, well, maybe they're just kind of in there. Just going to back them off so that they don't get in the way when I go to reinstall. They don't have to come out. Okay, so 4 bridge screws, let's go take those off. There is a spring in this one. I got that one out. So on the spring side, you want to cup your hand like I'm doing here, so when you push that bridge through, you don't lose that little coil spring. The anti-reverse dog is a traditional coil spring anti-reverse dog that you find on most Penn reels like this, and that spring will shoot if you don't take care in doing it. So what I like to do is I like to pull out all of those bridge screws till I feel that that bridge is moved, which you can see here. You push through, and just very carefully pull the side plate rather than push the bridge, and hopefully we can contain that that spring. And there you go. So I'm just going to lay this down, and you can see that that little tricky spring that I was talking about right here. And as I mentioned, sometimes that spring just kind of shoots. So it's a little prevention there. The inside of this reel, very much like every other Penn reel you see, we have the jack, have the yoke, have the 2 springs underneath. In this case, we have a ball bearing underneath that. you saw the spool gear come out when we pressed through. So let's take care of the top side of this one first. Simply press down on the yoke, just pull off the jack, pull out the yoke. We're going to put these right back, that's why I'm going to leave them right here. This is a bearing, so I like to oil the bearings. Again, I use a fishing reel oil. In this case, it's Real-X. You can use the Penn Reels oil. Here's a Penn Precision oil. You can use any manufacturer's oil that's good for fishing reels. Again, just on the idea of hybrids, here's a 200 eccentric on there. So most of the parts that Penn has in most of their reels, even though the design might be a little bit different, the parts are shared in a lot of different reels, which is good because when you go to get replacement parts, they're not that unique, and that helps in terms of you replacing worn parts as needed. The yoke is clean. Just checking. If it wasn't clean, I would use a piece of steel wool or something there. Checking the spool gear. You want to check the teeth, make sure that they're not banged up or dented in any kind of way. These are clean. You can put a little bit of grease on the teeth there so that that aids in the retrieve. Okay, just as normal, there's 2 indentations, one on each side for those springs. They sit in those indentations. The gear goes into the yoke. There's a slot in the gear that always faces outward. That's going to grab the spool shoulder. If you put it on backwards, you will be able to reassemble the reel, but the reel will never engage. All right, and then we grab the jack. And that's all we have to do on the top end then. So we've put the springs in, put the yoke on, put the gear inside the yoke, press down, put the jack on top. That's ready to be reinstalled. So let's go over. I told Hugo I was going to replace the drags in this because I just didn't like the way it felt. Let's see if they were worn or if it was just precautionary. I'll take the anti-reverse dog off and put that in my parts tray. And this is why you couldn't pull the ferrule through. I believe this is, well no, it's. I thought there was a collar there. There is a collar, but it's not attached. So if you wanted to pull that off before you remove the reel, you could. Here's the rest of the reel. We'll take that off. I'm just going to stack that for a moment because I want to remove this. Again, this reel is just a little bit sluggish. I think the gear sleeve might have some stuff underneath it. We're going to take a pin to push through the other pin. That one's a little too thick. Let me see if I can find my smaller pin while we're doing this. Maybe, maybe not. It's helpful to have a lot of different tools around. Let's see if we can push through with this. There's a little dead blow hammer. Helps. Need a little bit more leverage here. I think I'm knocking the pin into the wood below, so let's just, there you go. That's what was happening. I was driving it into the wood, so that didn't help me there. Okay, so the pin is out. Put that in the basket just because those little parts like the springs and that just tend to shoot, and we'll pull that off. Yeah, there's a little bit of accumulation there, so the first thing I want to do is just kind of clean that off. Paper towel for getting most of that junk off. I'm going to grab a little piece of steel wool here because there is some dried grease on the bridge itself. Go ahead and just clean that off while we're at it. Steel wool does a nice job on this. You can see the difference in how it's pulling off the contaminants on the bridge. And the last part, I like to just grab a little penetrating oil, put that inside the bridge sleeve. Grab that cotton swab, just run it around in there, just in case there's some stuff in there that dried up. And if that's done, now we can put a light coating of the reel grease in this. I like to advise to stay out of the channels with the reel grease. The top channel is where that pin rides that we took out. If you put the grease in there, it dries and it tends to have an adverse effect on it. Oh yeah, that's running a lot smoother now. So now we'll grab that pin that I just put in here. Just reinsert it into the hole there that holds the gear sleeve on. Get that dead blow hammer again and just kind of tap it down. Now when you're tapping it down, make sure that this clears the shoulder. If it doesn't clear that shoulder, then you're going to have trouble putting the main gear back on. And this one's just a little bit proud. So I'm going to take this pin. It's a little bit of a balancing act, but tap it down the rest of the way with the pin. This may be off camera, and I apologize if it is. I was just finding a flat spot on the board. There we go. We got it underneath now. Okay, let's take a look, see if we needed those drags or not. I was suspecting that we did, which is why we replaced them. And yeah, you can see here that let's grab a new one. I'll show you the difference. But these drags did need to be replaced, particularly the top one here. So it was a good thing that we decided to go ahead and do this. If you compare the channels on the two, you can see that these are all either worn off or covered, as opposed to the newer ones which have a meshing in it. So we're going to go ahead and replace the 3 older ones with the 3 new ones. So we have the main gear, we have the fabric washer, we have a round washer here, another fabric washer, the eared washer, which is the key, that always goes in the middle, fabric washer and end washer. And I'm going to put Cal's Universal drag grease on these, just to keep these fresh. So we'll start with the main gear going back on. Clean that tool off there. We're going to grab a little bit of the Universal drag grease. I'm going to use this as a tool now. I'm just going to wipe that in. You don't need a lot on here, just a little bit. First one of those goes in, and we're going to grab the first of the round washers. And grab the second one, do the same thing with our drag grease there. And when you do it, I'm just putting it on one corner, but you notice I'm kind of rubbing it into the whole piece. You don't want to put too much of this drag grease on because it'll only press out as you go to use the drags. So really you just want to keep it lightly lubed. Gives it a little bit of a slip factor, but it also just keeps the material flexible and keeps it from drying out. The last of the round ones, and then here's the cap washer that goes on. This is the ferrule now, so we're done basically with the service of this reel. Let's just go reinstall then, once we cap off the lubricants there. Okay, so the reinstall is very similar. Again, these reels share a lot of characteristics with Jig Masters and others. You're going to take a fully threaded screw, put that in the bottom side opposite where you're working. Grab the main assembly, that goes in next, and we turn halfway. Oop, I just knocked the jack out of position there. Press down, hold that. Grab our dog now. Dog goes underneath the bridge plate, and a hole in the dog goes on top of that screw that we just set. That creates this cavity here. The cavity is where that spring that I was warning you about shooting goes. Just be careful because it will shoot. And that's how that spring is properly installed. Once you do that, then you can continue the rotation. You want to line up the bridge with the screw. And then there are 2 studs. They sit on these holes here. You can hear them when they click in, and we just kind of heard that there. That's kind of what you're waiting for there. You're waiting for that click. When you get that stud to hold, then you can tighten down that screw just a turn or 2 while you wait to put the others in. There we go, we got that caught. And I'm not on the other stud here, so we'll just play around with that a little bit. Just making sure that that assembly works while we're doing this. There we go. So you can tell that you're on that stud because you're flush against the side plate. Go ahead and grab one of the partially threaded ones. They go up top and they go into the channel that that spring rides on. Again, just get it started. And right now I think we need to clear that channel. So use that pin again. And you got to work it around sometimes, and that's what we're going to do. I think we should have it now. There we go. I think I just heard it click. Go to the fully threaded screw, bottom other side. And again, I'm not tightening these down fully. I'm just trying to get them to catch. And then the top screw was already there. I was looking for it, but it never came out of the reel to begin with. Okay, once you have that, then cross these, tighten them down, but cross in the X pattern. So we're good on that side, good on this side, good on this side. We've oiled up all of the bearings. We've redone the yoke and jack assembly. Guess all we have to do is try it out, and it's working fine now with new drags in there. So I'm going to set that up. I'm going to grab the spool then, reinsert the spool in. I'm going to just put a little bit of blue grease onto the shaft here. We weren't able to do the inside of the spool gear, so put a little bit on there before we reinstall. I'm going to go grab that now. When we're set on that, we have a couple of screws we never did take out, so let's just, again, grab them just till they tight. Don't snug them down yet. Make sure that all 4 of the side plate screws go in first. Tell sometimes if you're actually getting started, but we are. Here's the 4th one on this side then. And now this reel came to me with the handle off. I assume that came off because it was easier to ship in the box that way. But I've got the schematic here because I got a question about where that washer went. I think it's a tension washer that goes behind the handle. Sometimes they go on top of the handle. So we're going to just take a look on these, just to make sure that we got it right. We'll go to that reference point here, and it shows that it goes between the star adjuster and the handle is where that that washer goes. So we'll take care of that now. We're going to take the handle, that star adjuster. On the star adjuster, there's 2 sides to this one, obviously. There's 4 sides. I guess somebody would tell me I got east and west on there. There's always an imprint on this one. So this says 10970. The imprinted part number goes behind when you do the assembly. And if we hadn't taken the bridge sleeve off, if you were just doing a quick maintenance here, then you can put some oil into the pin here, just to keep that fresh. You put a drop of oil in here, but we put the grease in there, so that's not needed at this point. Here's the washer. It did say it goes behind the handle. The handle is next. And of course he was kind enough to leave me that handle set screw there. But for the moment I can't get that. And then the nut is the size of the 6.0 Senator. It's not the size of the Long Beach series or that, so you need the bigger wrench for this. And those of you that watch this know I use an aftermarket wrench available through Mystic Parts. I think it's by Alan Tanney. This side is the bigger wrench. And when you tighten this nut, then just make sure that you have the channel aligned with the set screw hole so that that set screw can fit in there. Grab that set screw. And this service essentially is complete. I'm going to just put a drop of oil on the handle nut knob just to make it work properly. Keep it working properly. You can tighten down the drag there. Little drop of oil onto the knob. Give it a turn here. That's running a whole lot smoother than when it came in. So there you go. We got nice new and tight drags. This one's ready to go fishing for a long time. So that's the Penn Mag Power 980. That's how you do the service on it, and that's what makes it work underneath. Again, the unique feature here is that it does have that magnet. If you want to slow the spool, you just turn clockwise. If you want to have less impact on the spool, you turn counterclockwise. Okay, so that's Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hugo, this will be on its way back to you. And for the rest of you, if you like it, please indicate that on YouTube. If you want to see more, please subscribe. Again, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Thank you for watching.